I'm so sorry that I was so long.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have Croatia.
Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Petra Smajic, and I am participating in this week's event on behalf of the Ministry of Culture and Media of the Republic of Croatia. The Croatian delegation is also joined by two representatives of the private sector, specializing both in architectural conservation and the restoration of artwork. And just at the beginning, on behalf of all the three of us, I wish to extend our sincere gratitude to our organizers and hosts this week, the ICE agency and the Restauro. So my presentation today will focus on giving you a short overview of the conservation and restoration sector in the Republic of Croatia. And in the second part, I will focus in a bit more detail on the major events of the 2020 earthquakes that hit central Croatia and have thus since been occupying the majority of our capacities and resources, both in terms of cultural heritage sector as well as the state administration. So just as a brief introduction, the Republic of Croatia is a small European country with the population somewhere around 4 million, depending on the final results of our most latest census. And considering our size and area, I believe it is safe to say that we can be very proud of the number of our UNESCO listings. Now, in terms of geography, Croatia is located at a sort of a crossroads of different cultural circles and influences. So we belong at the same time to the Balkan region. The continental parts of Croatia have always, in terms of cultural heritage especially, been strongly influenced by the Central European circles, while the coastal area on the Adriatic Sea is a part of the Mediterranean. Now, I point this out because in terms of international cooperation, especially with the Italian Republic, it is in the coastal area of Croatia that the most grounds for cooperation will occur in terms of types of cultural heritage find, materials used, and styles that are present. This is also visible in some of our shared UNESCO listings. So the Italian Republic and the Republic of Croatia share, for example, the listings of the art of stone drywall and the Mediterranean diet when it comes to intangible cultural heritage, and when it comes to the immovable cultural heritage, it is the Venetian fortification architecture that in Croatia is present in the coastal city of Zadar. When it comes to the conservation and restoration sector in Croatia, the basis and the legal framework is our Act on the Protection and Preservation of Cultural Heritage. And by this act, it is defined that the legal competence of safeguarding and monitoring the state of cultural heritage falls under the authority of Ministry of Culture and Media, or more precisely, our 19 conservational departments, which in a certain way do also mirror the regional soprintendenti system that we have been hearing about here in Italy. The exception is the capital city of Zagreb, which has a dedicated City of Zagreb Institute for the Conservation of Cultural and Natural Heritage as the legally competent body. Now, this legal competence implies that the regional conservational departments and the Zagreb Institute are in charge of documenting, monitoring the state of cultural heritage within their respective territories, as well as supervising all the interventions that are conducted on the cultural heritage as well as prescribing certain criteria and standards in the procedures. Now, these These tasks that I have just mentioned are just a part of the scope of the Ministry of Culture work when it comes to cultural heritage. I will, in a couple of slides, refer to our register of the cultural property of the Republic of Croatia, but for the time being, I will just outline the funding programs of our ministry, as the majority of conservation and restoration work is state-funded. And I wanted to outline the most important stakeholders in this process. So it is the owners and beneficiaries of the cultural heritage objects and sites that apply to the open call for public needs in culture, expressing their needs for restoration and conservation work. It is then the conservational departments who are in charge of monitoring the state, who prioritize among the applications, and once the programs are selected for funding, it is important to state that the backbone of the actual restoration work are our private subcontractors specialized in a variety of fields. Another line of budget are the institutions for the protection of cultural heritage, which are state-funded and centralized, focusing on some of the projects of national significance, such as the Croatian Conservation Institute or our Institute for Underwater Archaeology in Zadar, also a very relevant institution internationally. And lastly, part of the funding does come from local stakeholders and different donations. In addition to the conservational department supervising the restoration work conducted within their legal competence, I just wanted to point out, without going into all this detail, to another mechanism that secures the expertise and the quality levels of working with cultural heritage. And these are the two mechanisms that we have, the requirements for working on cultural heritage. They include either formal competences. As you can see, there is a possibility to specialize in a number of areas, or they are based on the work phases of the process of protection and preservation of cultural property. These are the permits. And the both mechanisms are renewed, so it is not so as to ensure long-term quality. As for the last part of this introductory section of my presentation, I wanted to tell you a little bit about our register of cultural property of the Republic of Croatia. It includes these three lists: the list of protected cultural heritage, the list of cultural heritage with national significance, and the provisional list of preventively protected cultural heritage. It is a mechanism that allows a very a bit quicker process of inscribing and listing cultural heritage, but it also has an expiration date of 2 years, so it is supposed to work as an opportunity for this cultural heritage to be further researched, so as to make the final decision whether to include it in the list of protected cultural heritage. The main classification, according to a register, divides our cultural property into immovable, archaeological, movable, and intangible cultural heritage. Here you can see indicated the latest numbers. And I need to point out that our register is available in open access as a searchable database, with the exception of movable cultural heritage, which, for the reasons of preventing theft, you can receive information upon request rather than it being publicly open. Now, as an upgrade to our register of cultural property and a very important project of our ministry for the last couple of years, in 2021 we have launched the Geo-portal of cultural property. It is an interactive application with geo-referencing, and I will not be demonstrating the application itself, just a couple of screenshots for you to get the image. This is the entire Croatia with all the immovable and intangible cultural property, and if you wish to find out more about a single unit, it looks something like this on the example of the island of Mali Lošinj and its historical ensemble. Now that much for the introduction. In March 2020, within the same week when in the Republic of Croatia, a statewide lockdown was introduced so as to mitigate the effects of the global COVID-19 pandemic. The capital of Zagreb was hit by 2 consecutive earthquakes with the magnitudes of 5.5 and again 5. Now, while these earthquakes were not so severe so as to cause the most serious extent of damage in terms of complete collapse of structures, the fact remains that the city of Zagreb, as the capital city, is our headquarters of state administration. It is the home of many cultural institutions. So what happened is that a lot of our very important institutions, as well as hospitals, schools, are located in landmarks and, in fact, in buildings of historical relevance. Therefore, the damage is in so much greater. The cumulative, the estimated damage of the Zagreb March earthquake amounts to above 18 billion euro, and out of this 11 billion euro, and out of this 11 billion euros, over 7 billion pertains to cultural heritage, in fact. Now, in the following weeks and months, our main task was to document and analyze all the damages, and as time went by and the projects of urgent measures already started to be implemented, at the end of the year we were hit by another series of earthquakes and aftershakes, this time with the epicenter south of Zagreb in the city of Petrinja, with the strongest earthquake in the magnitude of 6.2. And this time the earthquake hit a larger area, but it also caused progressive damage to the cultural heritage already damaged by the Zagreb March earthquake. The estimated damage of this earthquake was around 5 billion euro. Now, these are just to illustrate some of the immediate damage, pictures taken right at the day of the Zagreb earthquake in the very city center prior to any cleaning. And as you can see, as is indicated, the analysis revealed that around 73% of the total number of protected cultural properties were damaged in the city of Zagreb. Now, the next slide illustrates damages in Zagreb, but following the Petrinja earthquake. So we have progressive damages here. It also, at the same time, illustrates some of our most relevant and valuable monuments, such as the Zagreb Cathedral or the Church of St. Catherine of Alexandria, an amazing Baroque piece. And as you can see, these sacral buildings feature the large spanning vaults, which are especially fragile under seismic activity, and their behavior was not sufficient to sustain. At the same time, they will pose an relatively complex challenge in the restoration, especially due to this decorated vaulting. A lot of damage was recorded for movable cultural heritage as well, be it sacral inventories or museum holdings, because, as I mentioned, Zagreb is one of our cultural centers, and a lot of very valuable collections are in fact located in Zagreb. Now, what our main task was in the following months and over this entire period, the Ministry of Culture and Media organized and coordinated the damage and needs assessment when it comes to cultural heritage. Here I wanted to show you the damage documentation forms. due to the experience that we have had in the 1990s on documenting war damages on cultural heritage in Croatia. We were able to use some of these older documentation forms, and they were adapted to monitor earthquake damage by integrating the international EMS 98 code of structural damage classification. Among many initiatives and different support that we have received internationally, I wanted to quickly just point out our historical Mirogoj cemetery complex, a multi-confessional cemetery and a very valuable monument of the city of Zagreb, which has in 2021 been included in the 7 most endangered list initiated by the organization Europa Nostra as a recognition of the damage it has suffered. Now, moving on to the Petrinja earthquake as well, a quick overview. The earthquake was of a greater magnitude. The damage was most severe on individual objects, but as mentioned before, the full extent wasn't as large. So nearly as much as 28% of these monuments that were inspected suffered heavy to total structural damage, again according to the EMS 98 classification. And this is just to illustrate some of these damages. The Petrinja Historic Core was hurt most badly, but great damage was also present in the city of Sisak and in the entire region, in fact, which is characterized by these larger sacral edifices on the outside of the urban areas. Now, before I end my presentation, I just wanted to point out and use this opportunity to once again thank the Italian Ministry of Culture for the cooperation and support we have received based also on their extensive experience due to their location in the seismically active area as well. So within 2 weeks since the Petrinja earthquake, on January 10th already, a team of the Carabinieri Command for the Protection of Cultural Heritage joined our Croatian state conservators and restoration experts on a mission of urgent evacuation of movable cultural heritage. The team was led by the representative of the Italian Ministry of Culture, Mr. Paolo Scarpitti, and in addition to organizing these urgent evacuations, they also held a very valuable workshop educating our professionals on the following steps of evacuating, securing, and organizing the storage spaces for the movable cultural heritage, as it cannot be returned to their original site until all the safety requirements have been met. And finally, another initiative by our Ministry of Culture was the foundation of the International Expert and Advisory Committee for the Structural Renovation of Built Heritage damaged in the earthquakes. This international committee was founded in the first half of the 2021. It focuses on carefully selected case studies so as to address some of the most problematic issues and challenging projects. It gathers Croatian experts from the fields of structural engineering, art history, and architecture, and we are also joined by international experts specialized in structural retrofitting of built heritage from the Earthquake Engineering and Structural Dynamics Laboratory of the École Polytechnique in Lausanne, Switzerland, and from the ICOMOS I-Corp section, which is dedicated to risk preparedness on cultural heritage. Additionally, in a November 2021 session, we were also joined by Mr. Paolo Iannelli, who is a special superintendent for the areas hit by the 2016 earthquakes here in Italy, from the Ministry of Culture of the Italian Republic, who then shared the valuable Italian experience in retrofitting and recovery following the earthquakes. And lastly, just a short insight into what has been done since. The urgent stabilization measures needed to be introduced while acquiring documentation and analysis to work more specifically on the actual rehabilitation project for some of these complex monuments. So that would be all, and thank you very much.